Look at this country, Turkmenistan. Most people couldn't point to it on a map. But from 1991 to 2006, this Central Asian nation became the stage for one of the most bizarre personality cults in modern history. This is the story of Saparmurat Niyazov, a man who declared himself a prophet, rewrote the calendar, and built a religion around himself. While alive, he was one of the wealthiest and most powerful people on earth, using Turkmenistan as his private kingdom, controlling everything, including its massive reserves of natural gas. But to understand how one man could transform an entire nation into his personal cult, we need to understand where this all began. Turkmenistan sits here, wedged between the Caspian Sea and Afghanistan, with Iran on its southern border. For centuries, this was the land of nomadic horse breeders, constantly searching for grazing pastures. And because of its strategic location, it attracted conquerors. Alexander the Great marched through here. Then came the Parthians, the Arabs, and the Mongols. But because of its massive size, its inhospitable terrain, and fierce tribalism, Turkmenistan was never easily governed. In fact, Russia's first attempt to control this region ended in disaster. In 1717, Peter the Great ordered an expedition here, and the Tsar's men were massacred by local Khans. Still, by the late 19th century, Russia had established control. But Turkmenistan didn't even have a defined border until 1924, when it became a Soviet republic, the Turkmen Soviet Socialist Republic. And within the Soviet system, Turkmenistan was always seen as a backwater, the forgotten republic compared to places like Ukraine or Georgia. During Gorbachev's time in the 1980s, a man named Saparmurat Niyazov was named first secretary of the Communist Party of Turkmen SSR. And that's where it all began. It's 1991. The Soviet Union is collapsing, and in the chaos, Niyazov sees his opportunity. He seizes power and becomes the president of an independent Turkmenistan. But he doesn't stop there. In 1999, the Turkmen parliament declares him president for life. And it's at this moment that he gives himself a new name, Turkmenbashi, leader of all the Turkmen. This is when one of the most outlandish personality cults of modern times begins. For decades, Soviet citizens had been told what to think, how to live, how to worship. They saw portraits of Marx and Lenin everywhere. When communism fell, there was a vacuum, and Niyazov stepped right into it. His image replaced those of Marx and Lenin. His cult of personality came to resemble that of the Kim dynasty in North Korea and the Gaddafi regime in Libya. His disciples called him the national prophet. And to support this claim of being a prophet, Turkmenbashi did what any self-respecting dictator prophet would do. He wrote his own Bible. In 2001, he published the Ruhnama, or Book of the Soul. He regarded himself as an accomplished writer. It was a bizarre blend of autobiography, spiritual musings, and historical revisionism. And reading it wasn't optional. The Ruhnama became compulsory reading in schools. It was required knowledge for job interviews and, strangely, even for driving tests. If you wanted a driver's license in Turkmenistan, you had to know the Ruhnama. Turkmenbashi claimed it was a divinely inspired book. He even said that reading it 3 times would earn you a place in heaven. If you are enjoying the video so far, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. You can also check out my video about how one man almost changed China by clicking here. But nowhere was Niyazov's absolute power and megalomania more visible than in the capital, Ashgabat. The city became filled with gold statues of Turkmenbashi, meant to be revered by all. His portraits adorned nearly every public building. He even gave every citizen a watch with his portraits on the dial. Like Kim Il-sung and Muammar Gaddafi, there was even a creation myth surrounding him. Several of the portraits measured hundreds of square feet. But the most spectacular statue was a revolving golden statue showing Turkmenbashi with his arms raised, rotating with the sun from dawn till dusk, seemingly guiding it across the sky. The statue stood on a gigantic marble structure called the Neutrality Arch. Other statues showed him sitting, striding, waving, saluting, smiling. One even depicted him as a golden child, seated in the lap of his bronze mother. He once said, "I admit it, there are too many portraits, pictures and monuments. I don't find any pleasure in it, but the people demand it because of their mentality." Ironically, there was a bronze statue of Lenin in Neutrality Square that looked modest and charming in comparison. As Turkmenbashi consolidated power, his decrees grew increasingly surreal and overbearing. He renamed months and days of the week after himself and his family. January became Turkmenbashi. The city of Krasnovodsk also became Turkmenbashi. April and the word for bread were changed to his mother's name, Gurban Sultan. He banned opera, he banned long hair on men, he banned lip-syncing and gold teeth. He shut down rural libraries, stating that villagers didn't read anyway. He argued that the only book most Turkmen needed were the Quran and his Ruhnama. And in one of his most strange decrees, he dedicated a national holiday to musk melon, the Turkmen version of watermelon. After a heart surgery in 1997 forced him to quit smoking, Turkmenbashi forbade smoking in all public places. He also disliked makeup on TV presenters, so in 2004 he mandated that newsreaders appear on screen with cosmetic-free faces. To encourage physical activity, Niyazov installed 28 miles of concrete paths and staircases in the parched, treeless Kopet Dağ mountains. All government employees had to walk a 23-mile section once per year, and Turkmenbashi himself would travel by helicopter to the finish line, where he would chastise anyone whose speed dipped below his preferred pace. At 62 years old, Niyazov became concerned about being perceived as elderly in a nation where male life expectancy hovered around 60. His solution changed the definition of time itself. By official decree, adolescence extended to 25 years old, and old age began at 85. Citizens who reached 62 entered a stage called inspirational, and were entitled to a 3-day holiday and government bonus. But beneath all the absurdity, the golden statues, the renamed months, the melon holidays, was a deeply authoritarian regime. In his time, Niyazov was one of the world's most totalitarian, despotic and repressive dictators. Dissent was brutally suppressed. Opposition politicians, independent journalists, and religious minorities were harassed, imprisoned, or disappeared. Turkmenistan became one of the most closed and secretive countries in the world, rivaling North Korea. Media was entirely state-controlled and internet access was heavily restricted. The US government even said that by the time he died, Niyazov's personality cult had reached the dimensions of a state-imposed religion. Curiously, one of Niyazov's earliest acts was to abolish the death penalty. He also granted, quote, official human rights to the people, although this was never respected in practice, with his government criticized as one of the worst human rights violators in the world. The Turkmen media constantly glorified the president and helped build his cult of personality. In 2005, he closed down all libraries and hospitals outside of Ashgabat, even though more than half the population lived in rural areas. He said, "If people are ill, they can come to Ashgabat." In 2006, 1/3 of the country's elderly had their pensions discontinued, and pensions received during the prior 2 years were ordered to be paid back to the state. When foreign media reported that this resulted in deaths, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs denied it, accusing outlets of spreading, quote, deliberately perverted information. Under his rule, Turkmenistan had the lowest life expectancy in Central Asia. One human rights organization reported that money under Niyazov's control and held overseas may have been around $3 billion, most of it allegedly held in the Foreign Exchange Reserve Fund at Deutsche Bank. Dissidents were sent into internal exile, forced from their homes, or detained in psychiatric hospitals. Torture was common as well. One method of isolating people was demanding a hefty fee if they wished to leave the country for any reason. Marrying a foreigner cost $60,000, more than a Turkmen's average lifetime earnings. He tapped the country's vast gas wealth for outlandish projects. A huge man-made lake in the Karakum Desert, a vast cypress forest to change the desert climate, an ice palace outside the capital, a ski resort, and a 130-foot pyramid. He also built the largest mosque in Central Asia, called the Spirit of Turkmenbashi. In 2002, Niyazov's motorcade was fired upon in downtown Ashgabat as he traveled from his official residence to his office. He claimed it was a coup attempt. As a result, the government arrested thousands of suspected conspirators and members of their families. Many higher-ranking members were purged. But critics claim this was a staged, manufactured crisis to crack down on mounting domestic and foreign political opposition. On December 21st, 2006, Saparmurat Niyazov died suddenly of a heart failure. He had ruled for 21 years. Because Niyazov had named no successor, the chairman of the assembly was supposed to assume the presidency. But Vice President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov had other plans. He arrested the chairman on that same day and was subsequently named acting president. Berdimuhamedov was Niyazov's former dentist. After taking power, he rolled back some of the more absurd policies, but kept the authoritarian system firmly in place. Berdimuhamedov somehow developed his own strange cult of personality. His strange fixation was the Akal Teke horses, Turkmenistan's national animal and emblem. His book, The Flight of Celestial Racehorses, opens with the words, "I won't call you a horse. I would call you brother. You are dearer than brother." He decreed that every year the nation would host an annual beauty contest for horses. The story of Turkmenbashi is a story of absolute power and absolute absurdity existing side by side. From a Soviet backwater to a golden city of statues, Turkmenistan became a monument to one man's vanity. But it's also a story of suffering, of a people isolated from the world, stripped of basic freedoms, watching their wealth siphoned away while their leader built ice palaces in the desert. Turkmenistan's modern history is about how authoritarian systems perpetuate themselves, how personality cults fill voids, and how power, once consolidated, is almost impossible to dismantle. Thanks for watching this video about the dictator that built his own religion. If you enjoyed, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. You can also check out my other videos on the channel by clicking here. See you in the next video.